And so, in the midst of the sermon one day, these words came out of my mouth: sex and money, everybody wants some, but we don't want to talk about it. And I have to tell you, the reaction from the members that day, my bishop at that time, was she laughed hysterically. But some of the elders, the older people in the church, they wanted to stone me. They got on their feet and said, "Bishop, I can't believe what just came out of his mouth." So it was at that point, as I began to pastor and became a bishop, we start talking about subjects and topics that, often we don't want to address over the pulpit, but I think they need to be addressed. Good afternoon, morning, evening, or wherever you're at in the world today. We'd like to welcome you to Conversations Beyond the Pulpit, the podcast where we explore the complexities of faith in everyday human experiences. I'm your host, Bishop Joseph N. Roberts Jr., with my lovely co-host, my wife, Michelle Roberts. Talk to him, dear.
And I'm your co-host, elect Lady Michelle Roberts.
So today we're going to be discussing a very interesting topic, guys. Sex and money, everybody wants some. So the genesis of this episode of the podcast today, about 21 years ago, I was a young minister at my church where the Spirit of the Lord truly moved, but we were a very traditional church. We were a church where I probably was the youngest minister at that time, and we were evolving, emerging into this 21st generation that we are now attached to preach to. And so in the midst of the sermon one day, these words came out of my mouth: sex and money, everybody wants some, but we don't want to talk about it. And I have to tell you, the reaction from the members that day, my bishop at that time, was she laughed hysterically. But some of the elders, the older people in the church, they wanted to stone me. They got on their feet and said, "Bishop, I can't believe what just came out of his mouth." So it was at that point, as I began to pastor and became a bishop, we start talking about subjects and topics that, often we don't want to address over the pulpit, but I think they need to be addressed. So we got this safe space today where I'm not in the pulpit, I'm not in my robe, and just want to talk about the things that we need to be fruitful and productive in life. So today we're going to talk about sex and money. Everybody wants some. God created all things good for us. I believe when you are married and you're in a healthy and productive relationship, and we know as time go on, things changes in our life, but still, sex is a part of marriage. We talk about what is the number one cause of divorce today. It's money. So people not understanding how to manage finances, not even knowing what money is. Sometimes we just look at money as green bills and change that we have in our pocket. But money is a medium of exchange, and we have more than we think we have, but we haven't been taught about the usage of it and what its purpose really is in the kingdom. So today we want to talk about what we all want. We want healthy and productive marriages, and not just from a perspective of intimacy, but there is a physical attraction that we have to our spouses. So in having that physical attraction, there's things that come along with it. I might have some kids watching today. So, how do we maintain a healthy and vibrant sexual relationship, as well as making sure what is there to attack our marriages, deficiencies of, or the lack of not having enough money. And I believe that one really shouldn't affect the other one when our faith and our principles is built in God. Dear, any comments on that before we get started today?
No, I think that's pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Okay. So we're going to dig into and dive into, guys, some of the complexities of our marriage, some of our health issues. I don't want to talk about your marriage because you might send me a text or get a hold of our technical team. So I'm going to talk about us personally. So I want everybody to know, relax, cool your jets today. These are topics we talk about behind closed doors, but let's bring it to the forefront today. Yes, I am a bishop. I love the Lord with every fiber of my being, but I'm a man and I'm also a husband. I am a entrepreneur, so every day I have to deal with finances. I have been through bankruptcy. We have had the ups and downs, the ebb and flows of not having enough money at some points in our life. And I can tell you today that when we went through tough times financially, it did not stop our intimacy. It did not stop our willingness to be compatible sexually with each other. So I just want you to know today, as we departmentalize the two subjects, we're going to deal with sex first. You know, God created Adam and Eve. I can't stress that enough. Adam and Eve. And he told them to be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth. So when we look at how do a man and a woman be fruitful and multiply, it's through intercourse. It is a natural, beautiful estate that we should be able to healthy and vibrantly indulge in when we are married. This is not for the unwed, the topic of sex. You can be unwed and want to deal with money, but sex is for married people. And I can say that because we both have children out of wedlock. We were single parents at one point in our life. And as we grew in the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, we understand that sex is for married people. One of the things that I have to really highlight today and underscore is we didn't talk about these issues enough when I was growing up in church. They may have been adult conversations. Back when we were growing up, we really didn't have sex education in school, so we didn't learn the things from a biblical perspective, knowing that it was sin. We knew it wasn't right to do, but nobody really took us down that path of how beautiful sexual relationships is in a married environment. And so we've learned that being married, putting the Lord Jesus Christ first in our life, that the intimacy part of our sexual relationship really just began to heighten. I didn't just look at my wife as my boo and an object of attraction, but I began to look at her as my soulmate. And when God created Adam and Eve, that's what she was. She was his soulmate. So he felt what she felt what he felt. And there is a whole nother level of sexual relationships when you really feel each other, when you understand what's going on in the inward part of each other. It's no longer a fleshly desire, but it turns into real intimacy. Sex is the act that we perform when we're exploring intimacy from a natural perspective, but there is a soul tie, there is a spiritual side of this when you begin to understand the union, the bond of marriage. And so we talk about this from a physical standpoint today, but I believe that when you are spiritual and you have that bond of marriage, it becomes such an intimacy. And in that intimacy, it lets us know when our spouse is up to it. It lets us know when our spouse isn't up to it. And I think that's really important as we begin to go down this foxhole of sex today. There?
Sex and intimacy is totally different, but sex does become a different object to you once you are married. It's like when you're having sex outside of marriage, it's like you're having sex because you think you're going to keep that person. But once you are married, sex is more, well, it is intimate, but sex is more caring, is more a feeling of, this is because I love this person. This is because me and them are going to be together forever. And it's a different feeling.
Yes.
It's a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Like God said, when He created Adam and Eve, He wanted them to multiply and replenish the earth.
Yes.
And yes, and there are some in marriage that literally that's all they have sex for, is to create more children. But sex is definitely a part of your marriage that you have to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And like he said, even concerning health, some people have health issues within marriage, but there are always ways still that you can still be with each other sexually, that will keep each partner
satisfied,
but satisfied
fulfilled,
is not really the word I'm looking for, but knowing that they
content.
are wanted.
Okay,
That's
I
the
like
word I
that
was
word.
looking for. But I was looking for another word, but wanted is the word that will work. Because if you ignore your partner or your partner ignores you, you tend to think that they are trying to achieve sex from somewhere else. So you don't want that happening. You want that feeling. So you got to have communication. You got to have communication even in sex.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? All right, I don't feel good today because my back is hurting. So, I don't think we're going to have sex today. Some people get headaches. And for some women, I'm going to tell y'all, some of y'all use that a little bit too much because y'all don't really have a headache. So I never use that in mine because...
Well, you have a different kind of husband, too. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Well, plus, I'm one of those people. I'm just honest. If I wasn't in the mood, I was just like, today's not the day.
Yes.
Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's about communication, even in sex. Everything in marriage is about communication. So, what you got to say about that?
Well, good point. It's okay if we laugh. We're still saved. Feeling wanted, I think that's a very good part, because sometimes we think there's just, the physical attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want that person because, our wife is fine, our husband looks good. But inwardly, when somebody loves you and they have a true desire to be with you and to fulfill every part of your life, because that's what love does. Love wants that person fulfilled and complete. And so when there's health issues or you have a headache or your husband has a headache, it's important to understand that a lot of times there's true validity to it. But then there's days where, because of the long days at work, the long days with the children, that the other person may not just feel up to it. Doesn't mean they don't want you, doesn't mean they don't desire you, does not mean that their mind is not gravitating towards you from a sexual perspective. Their body might be craving you, but they are just tired today. And when we understand marriage and sex, that is a valid reason, not for today, for tomorrow. I will tell every man that is still in good physical shape, I'm in pretty good physical shape, we have to have other, and I'm going to use this word as outlets, because sometimes our testosterone level go through the roof. Running is mine. I enjoy going to the gym. I enjoy exercising. And so even in my workout regimen, I'm going to give you gentlemen some help here. You just cannot go for the testosterone boosting workouts, squats and bench pressing, and don't add no cardio. You have to have a balanced workout regimen that if today is the day that Mrs. You decides that she has a headache or she's tired, that you got something else that can help relieve those endorphins, help lower your testosterone level, because at the end of the day, we want to have sex and intimacy with our married partner, our spouse. We don't want no reasons, give no place to the devil, resist him, and sometimes we got to have things in our life to help us resist what can build up. Being wanted, when you know that your spouse loves you, and it's not just they want you because of the sexual things they perform for you, behind closed doors, but the fact that she gets up and clean, the fact that she's a good mother, the fact that she takes the time to pray with you and she's concerned about how your day went. And same thing for women, because you have men some days that just, They wake up on 100, they go to bed on the 100. They're trying to navigate all of the complexities of being a father, being a husband, being a provider, being a protector. And we get winded some days throughout the day ourselves. I got my son's in the room that's recording the podcast. I see a couple nods, I see a couple frowns, but at the end of the day, we will all come into agreement. The older we get, our drive is not what it used to be. And so therefore, it doesn't mean that we want our spouse any less. Doesn't mean our sexual drive towards them is any less. And I'm gonna keep it 100 with you today. There are some days I wake up in the morning flirting with my wife. Dear, you know I love you. You know I run my fingers through her hair as soon as we get done praying. I go to work. I might send her a couple texts throughout the day. I will find the most gorgeous picture of her on my phone, and I'll send it to her and say, man, look how fine you are. And then I'll have some ebb and flows throughout the day. I probably have built up her expectation, and I come home and I start playing with the grandkids. She look for me. I'm in bed tucked away sleep. So for men, our wives have to deal with those kind of days. It doesn't mean we don't love them any less. The thought was there. Now let me reverse it. Some days the shoe is on the other foot. The thought is there. You know, I'll wake up and I might have a card on my dress or whatever with some hearts and smiley faces. She called me up. What you want for dinner today? It's not the fact that she asked me what I want for dinner. It's how she asked me, what do you want for dinner? You know, and my mind goes right to more than just dinner that day, if you understand what I'm saying. And so by the time I get home, you know, due to health conditions, things may happen. And dinner's wonderful and dinner's great. And guess what? I'm going to the gym at 6 o'clock. It's okay. We'll get over it. We'll keep going. Another day, another opportunity. And when you love and desire each other, what didn't happen today, what didn't happen next week, let me tell you, when it does, because of love and intimacy, it's well worth the wait. So being patient with one another is very important. I said all of that in a very extrapolated way just to get there. Be patient. Marriage is for a lifetime. It's for a lifetime. So if you go a week, 7 days, if you go 21 days, it's okay. Glory to God. The desire has not left.
Well, women, me being a woman and me having lots of friends growing up and knowing friends, there are some women that are more sexual than men. Meaning, there are some women that, keep it real, that want it more than men do. And you may have a husband that, you know, don't think sex is that important and don't want to have it all the time. So women, you too, you have to have an outlet, something you like to do, whether it's baking, cooking, sewing.
Can I interject one point? Women, let cooking be your outlet and your husbands will be very happy. Sorry, excuse me.
But you need an outlet too. And there was something I was in counseling. I was mentoring one woman. Well, I wasn't mentoring her, but we were having counseling sessions, and she was like, she just don't understand it. And I had to let her know, you know, sometimes before, even if, you know, sex isn't something you dove into until after you got married, or if you dove into it before you got married. If you don't know how to keep yourself satisfied without actually having sex, that's something you must learn about yourself before you even will ever feel satisfied in that area. So whether you know, so when you get married, you can't get dissatisfied with who you're married to, because if you didn't wait for God to put y'all together, it's the one you chose. So now it's your time to choose to keep one another happy. So that's what I have to say about that right there.
Good point. Again, you know, a lot of times when we look at life, we find inconsistencies or faults with the people we are with. And my wife made a very good point. because you were not satisfied in any area of your life when you got into the marriage. So if you don't have things, rather it's, and I hate to use this, but I will because we're talking about the complexities beyond the pulpit here. If you have not found satisfaction in who you are as a person, if you don't have a career goal or something in place, if you haven't been able to put, you know, lifestyle patterns that you find satisfaction in, if it's, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym every day and I have this routine and I'm going to build, you have to have things in your life that you are not completely dependent on your spouse to satisfy you in. And the shame of it is when we are not satisfied with who we are as individuals, we can put so many burdens on our spouse. And the two things that should be enjoyable become very burdensome. One, sex. Sex is for married couples to be very enjoyable. And not only that, it is how God allow us to plenish the earth and replenish the earth and populate, and it gives us legacy and longevity. So I believe that when there is a healthy satisfaction within each other, and now you're intimate together, you know, you have two people, you know, projecting positive seeds. I'll use this word, a positive vibe, you know, through the Holy Spirit. And what do you think you're going to produce? You're going to produce a very vibrant, happy child. But if sex is just an act of you want to be satisfied, then, you know, soon as the act is over, you go right back to being that miserable person until you get some again. So as my wife just said, find those things in life that will complete you. And then sex becomes such a very intimate, euphoric experience and not just a natural experience. I said two things that should be very healthy for a marriage. Even building, you know, money together. And again, I use the word money. I would rather use the term finances, but I'm just going to deal with money. When you begin to build a productive life together and you start entering into a partnership with your spouse, you know, ways to make money, ways to be successful. Rather it's helping her with a bake sale, a dinner sale. Where we grew up at, that was one of the things we would do. You know, if kids needed to go on a school trip, whatever the case may be, came down time for back to school shopping and you needed to generate extra revenue, make money. So you would say, all right, I'm going to sell dinners this weekend, whatever the case may be. We're going to have a yard sale this weekend. So that shouldn't be a stressful time. You know, oh, there go that woman wanting to fry fish again. No, you should be in there helping her batter that fish, looking at how we can build short-term and long-term money together. There. I'm really going to jump into that right there for a minute. Since it's the number one cause of divorce, we're going to hammer that one home.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was actually going to say, well, since he done segued over to money, I guess we're now discussing money in marriage.
Yes.
So, but yes, money in marriage can be a very hard thing for some people because not only because, especially if you've come from a family that didn't have as much as other families, and somebody in the family couldn't really manage money, but they just never got it together because one could and one couldn't, but the one that couldn't had a bad experience, and now they don't want the other one touching their money or handling their money.
Good point.
It can become a problem in marriage, and it's still his and hers instead of his, hers, and theirs. And I say that because once we got married, actually I did it before we got married. We was engaged.
We did.
And because we were planning our wedding and everything, I said, there are some things that I think we need to do. We need to put an account together that's ours, and that will be for taking care of the household and the children. And then we need to put ourselves on
a budget.
A budget. So before you even deposit your check in there, you take out how much you think you can get by in a month. And before I put my check in there, I'll take out what I think
Good
I
point.
need to get by in a month. Whether that's gas, lunch, something you thinking about going to go buy because you want to buy it for yourself. So say you make $1,000 a week. So every week you're gonna take 200. That's you, but you got to remember out of that 1,000, now you got to pay tithe. So you got 900. So you're going to give the Lord his 100. Then you're going to take your allowance. It could be 200 because you driving back and forth to work, so you need gas. But that other 700 going to go in that house account. And then out of that house account, not only do you need to have a second account for emergencies, because emergencies happen all the time.
I think you won't give them their budget and finances, but you can keep going.
But pretty much, but that's it. That's budget and finances. That's that. But that's how you got to do it. You can't just always see it as mine's and yours, and then think that your marriage is going to be okay. Because if something happens, like plain and simple, I can just put it here. You know, at one point, he got laid off because his job closed, and he was out of work. But I was still working. But we still had money to take care of whatever we had to take care of before his unemployment came in. But, you know, he also didn't decide he was just going to sit around the house and do nothing while he was out on unemployment. It was summertime. He decided he going to cut some grass. He went and got that lawnmower and went out and started cutting grass. And I used to be like, babe, you ain't got to do that. We're going to be okay. It's all right. He was like, nah, I'm going to go do this. But money is, and it can be, because there are those that get depressed or sad once they lose their job, and they just want to sit around, do nothing, and mope and blame the other person. But you can't do that. You still have to have a conversation.
That's right.
It's all about a conversation. Well, until you find this job or you get a job, we're going to do this, and that. You may have to cut out some things. I can say my children never felt that they didn't have when one of us didn't have it. They never felt it. Because being in marriage with children, you gotta make sure your children don't feel that. Your children should never ever feel that. They should never feel that blow. As long as they have everything they need, they eating, they got food, they got lunch at school. That's how your children should always feel in your marriage. Even when it comes to money, they should never feel, well, oh no, you can't get that because your dad won't give us no money. You can't get that because your mom keeps spending all her money. No. It's you got to sit down and discuss your money, how it's going to be spent, what it's going to be spent on, and you got to become one in money.
Good point. You made a good point. Tithes first. I really believe, and I encourage everybody today, first we got to understand that God is our provider. And no matter what we're going through in life, he's Jehovah Jireh. He will provide. And, you know, a lot of times when we're counseling married people, you know, they will say things is tough, I can't tithe. And I'll tell people, you can't afford not to tithe. And I don't say that because I'm the bishop, I'm the senior pastor of the church. It was something that I just believed in. I believe tithing is a part of our covenant. So I would never break covenant with God no matter what I didn't have. You know, as my wife just forestated, there was a time, and it wasn't a long time, I was unemployed for about 5 weeks. And it felt like the longest 5 weeks of my life. I'm telling you, it just felt, and I found stuff to do. But even then, if I went out and made $100, I still tithe, because money with God is, you know, it's our lowest form of blessings. It is really just us showing God that we love him and we are keeping covenant with him. My wife talked about, you know, money management within the house. And we have couples today, and we understand you have a job, she has a job, this is her money, that's your money. But when you are married, you have to look at how can we work together. And I'll tell you how we run our house. I'm not trying to run yours. I'm telling you what we do. You know, I have my account. My wife has her account. And then we have an account together. For me, my account is for being a pastor and always being a giver. It's for the extra stuff that I want to do for God. It's for the extra stuff that I want to do for my children that is outside of the household budget. And when you get to those tough times, again, with money, we don't look at money as a medium of exchange. We look at it as green dollar bills here in the USA. Sometimes when things get tight, you got to look at your means of exchange. I remember years ago when we were both unemployed at one point, we had a yard sale because we looked at the mediums of exchange. We had kids that had outgrown their power toys. We had our youngest son at that point who was, collecting all of these different, I can't even remember the name of the Pokemons. I mean, he had a whole collection. And I'm saying, every time I turn around, we're going to GameStop or Toys R Us getting more. And there was, Pokemons that he did not play with anymore. Thank God we didn't get rid of the gold ones back then. But there was some that wasn't that valuable. And I'll tell you this story. In one yard sale, one weekend, we had $3,600 that we brought in of excess stuff just sitting around the house. Now, if we were just your average pessimistic couple, we're both unemployed, we're giving God our all, we would sit there and look at each other funny, be all upset. How did God fail us? Arguing with each other. But we looked around our household, gathered the kids up and said, what do you guys got you can't fit no more? What do you got you don't play with anymore? And so that's how we stayed afloat and kept things moving. The other thing, women, and I'm going to talk to you for a minute only because I counsel a lot of men. And one of the things that they address with me openly in counseling, they are not shy about it. It's synonymous that their wives like to go in shutdown mode when the finances get tight. You can't go in shutdown mode. You didn't. Now, if you only married him for money and a paycheck, I understand because your desire was never to him, it was to his career. But if you love that man and you didn't just marry him for financial security, but you married him for insurance and not just assurance, then guess what? It's going to turn because that burden is God. It is God's job to take care of us. And I don't mean that we should be lazy because faith without works is dead. But if you have a man and he's done his best, the economy got shaky, the job had a forced layoff or shut down, then guess what? You don't close up shop on him. You still stay that loving wife because he should still stay that nurturing husband. Now, husbands, it's a two-barrel shotgun here. Now, if your esteem was only based on how much money you made, then shame on you because you still have a God to glorify. You still have a lovely wife that cares about you and love you. So therefore, you can't turn into this beast that she's not used to handling her because you're going through emotional stress over losing your job. We have to learn how to be consistent in our relationship because we made a vow, richer or poor. So we might be on the poor side of our life right now financially, but, from a spiritual perspective, you're not bankrupt. You still have that opportunity to be caring, and God will make a way. Sometimes I realize in my life, I'll share a testimony with you. My wife talked about my job shutting down. It did. And I had to take on a whole new career. You call it reinventing yourself. And I had to now enter into an arena that I said I would never go in, and that was sales and marketing. I would cringe every time telemarketer called the house, every time somebody knocked on our door. And my wife said to me, she said, you're trustworthy. You love people. You have a very outgoing attitude. You love the work. You're responsible. You're dedicated to whatever you do. Go ahead out there and give it a try. And I'm telling you, man, I greased myself down with some oil from head to toe. I had a 100% commission sales job, didn't I? And I'm telling you, I made more in 1 month than I had made in the last quarter from that corporate America job. And so I just want you to know, wives, husbands, sometimes in money, when one door shuts, God's opening up another door. He was just making those faithful deposits in your life, building you to the thing that would bring you into increase and overflow. So I said all of that to say this: don't let money today, or the lack of, the shortage of it, cause you to stress out, cause it now to be a vice in your marriage. And what I mean by vice, something that grips it in your sexual relationship side of your marriage, and now it becomes inactive. And next thing you know, as they say today, you got a girlfriend on the side and a wife, because you're giving her more attention because she don't have the bills that your wife have to deal with. She doesn't have the stress of raising the kids. She's not answering the phone when the bill collector calls. So, that girlfriend that you got, or sometimes we think will give us gratification. No, she don't have the pressure that what lives in your bedroom have. So don't let money make you go outside of the marriage for something that may short-term gratify you. Stay in there. God will provide. Keep loving each other. Keep the shop open. And keep men yourself in a place where you can satisfy your wife in that time. Because you know what happened? We get overstressed. Things don't work like we want them to work. I'm keeping it 100 today. So learn how to keep yourself holy. Keep your mind on him, and he'll keep you in perfect peace. And when we have peace, everything flows harmoniously. Dear? And I hope that wasn't too much for you guys. Remember, I'm the gentleman 21 years ago who almost got thrown out of his church that I grew up in and I served faithfully in. But it's the truth of the matter, because these are things we have to talk about. We have to. And I understand we have children in church, or maybe not over the pulpit, but this is a safe space.
Yeah, so like you said, we're not saying that life can't sometimes become stressful in dealing with these subjects, sex and money. Yes. But we're saying keep your doors open, keep your ears open, keep your mind open, because, yes, things can become stressful in your marriage. But, and I'm not saying there wasn't times where we didn't have stress, but if one of us felt stress, we just had the compassion, and that's what you have to have, is compassion.
Good word.
To say to one another, look, I don't like the way you acting. What's going on? And if you don't open that door to conversation, and you open the door to conversation not angrily, not, don't do it in an upset way because you're upset. You have to realize, well, okay, he just lost his job. She just lost his job. They could be still under a lot of stress, even though I'm not trying to stress them, because there's outside things that will try you and stress and stress you. You got that one girlfriend, you got that one guy friend. Oh man, I would leave them. They ain't found a job in 2 weeks. Leave them. No, you need to shut them out. Mind your business.
Yes.
I shouldn't even been telling you my business. You giving me this kind of reaction.
Can I interject something there? This is
just
a good
one thing.
Point. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just one thing.
Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing.
One thing.
It's very good what you just said. Sometimes we don't think about the stress that the person is already under. I think about you, and we just had our youngest son, Joel, and faithful for 13 years on your job, and they decided to eliminate your position.
Okay.
How do you eliminate somebody's position that you created specifically for them that nobody else would do? And now because they're out or maternity leave, and she would never take the full 6 weeks, even though I would plead with her, for 4 weeks after she's done, and I'm just going to say it, your dirty work, what nobody else would do. And so I had to understand, I have a job, and a good job at that time, and God is sending surplus in from different avenues and ventures we had ventured into. But I still just can't say, don't worry, dear, we're going to be okay. No, you just gave somebody 13 years of your life in a position that nobody else would do. And so you got to have compassion. So that was the one thing.
That was three, but but yes, but you still have to have compassion for one another. Continue to pray for one another. Continue to encourage one another,
Yes.
because that's the first thing you got to do. When money gets hard, you got to encourage one another. And sometimes when, like he said, when your money is lacking, then the sex is lacking. But you still got to have compassion and care for one another to help get through it.
Yes.
And if you the type of person that you can't get through it, there's
Counseling.
always help.
Yeah, sorry.
There's always help. There's always help.
Counseling.
Counseling.
Here's something we don't like to talk about in the African American church, and I know our viewers are more than, our culture. There's nothing wrong with counseling. We look at barbershop as being counseling. We look at our hairstylist being counseling. Professional counseling, there is nothing wrong with it. Sometimes life can be so overwhelming. Counseling with your pastor, the elders of the church, is beautiful. But when you start dealing with money issues and it's affecting your marriage, and it's affecting your relationships with one another, there's nothing wrong with looking for professional counseling. And I would encourage people today, there are some topics that you're not even comfortable with. Again, we're dealing with the complexities, of life beyond the pulpit. Some people don't want to go talk to their pastors and leaders about sex and money. People at our church sure do. And they talk to us at great length about it. That's why we can be comfortable sitting here today having this discussion. But it's the way we have raised our children and the way we operate through love and the power of the Holy Spirit that our church members know you can come talk to us about anything, because we are real down-to-earth people. You look at all of our children, they didn't get here by osmosis, and neither is any of them Jesus. They got here by the act. And so when you realize that, and there's a blessing in being able to still be compatible from a sexual perspective with one another, and don't be afraid to use the word. Yes, I got it. We make love. We're very intimate. But when you begin to think about the hardship that is placed on the physical side of it, rather it's sickness in your body, or when you start thinking about going outside of the marriage, you're not going out there because you're looking for love and intimacy. No, you're going out there because you're looking for sex. That's what you're looking for. And you need to keep that in your mind, that be compassionate, stay connected and devoted to one another. Closing comments there?
No, I think we hit the points.
May have spent more time on the sex side of it versus the money side of it in my small recap today. Again, don't close up shop. Ladies, men, don't become overly aggressive because you are stressing over the lack of money. She is still your bride. He is still your husband. He's still Boaz, whether he's going through a hard time or not. And she is still as precious as Esther and Ruth, rather she's having a hard time. So be compassionate one towards another. Pray fervently in the Spirit. So to all, that concludes our episode of Conversations Beyond the Pulpit. Our whole discussion point today on sex and money was to encourage you in the Christian faith. As we said, we know these two topics aren't spoken often about in your local assembly over the pulpit, but I want you to know it's with all good intentions and purposes to encourage you in the Christian faith. And we ask that until the next time that you will look at our social media channels, visit us on our website, and the upcoming episode, please send us some emails, because the topic that you want in discussion, that you're afraid to talk to anybody about, we may grab that topic and put it on our very next podcast. We care about you. We're concerned about the topics that is not readily addressed in the church. So tune in to next time.